Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about aging, how I want to age, things you might want to consider as you're getting older, right? We're all getting older. And the three most important components of aging. My name is June Melia. I've worked in health and fitness for 25 years. I spent a portion of that time working with the older population in like a hospital setting, and I learned a lot working with that population, with the older population, and it really did frame how I want to age as I approach my middle years here. I'm 48, and these, like I said, these three things are really important to me, and um, they are what I build my fitness routines around. And when I work with people, women in their middle age, this is definitely something that I consider with them are these three things. So the first thing that we always consider is cardiovascular health, cardiovascular endurance. And one of the reasons why this is really important to me is because like we all want to have healthy lungs and healthy heart as we age, but also the functionality of being older and being able to do things, to maybe go on tours, go to Europe and be able to walk several miles a day, and not feel restricted or like you aren't able to keep up. I remember this one client I had who started training with me when she was taking her children and her grandchildren to Europe for a summer. And they were going away for like 2 or 3 weeks. They had all of these tours lined up. And when we first started working together, she had a hard time getting up the stairs at the gym. So there was just like the cardio level was on one floor and the strength training stuff was on the upper floor. And she would have to stop and take a little break before, if we moved from that lower level to the upper level, she would get to the top of just one flight of stairs. It was probably a flight of 12 steps, a little plateau, and then another set of 12 steps. And she would have to stop and sort of catch her breath. And I remember thinking, gee whiz, she's got this big trip in 4 months, and is she going to be just like sitting in on the bench in museums on this trip of a lifetime, and not be able to walk around and travel and all of that? Gosh, and she worked really hard for 4 or 5 months with me. I only saw her once a week, but she was really good about coming in and doing her exercise and making sure that before our appointment she was doing her car. She would do a mile, work herself up to, I think it was like 2 miles on the treadmill or something, at a pretty good clip. And by the time that trip came, she was feeling really good, and she actually had a great time on that trip with her family, and everything went really well. But it's really important to me that when I get older, I'm able to go and travel and go on trips like that, maybe take my grandkids on a trip and not feel like I'm holding people back, or I have to take breaks all the time, or people are nervous about if I'm going to be able to manage it or not. I really want to be cardiovascularly healthy and fit, and for longevity, and not only for longevity, but also for just quality of life, being able to walk 5+ miles a day and see the world when I'm older. We will all work so hard during these years of our lives that I really want to make sure that I have some endurance in the bank, so that I get to cash it in when I'm older and I can go and do that. I always, if we're out like doing something or in the city and I see people who are sitting or they feel like they need to take a break, I'm always like, oh, not in a judgment way, but like they can't, they're struggling to manage their cardiovascular health, and I don't want to be like that, and so that's really important to me to maintain activity and endurance. Cardiovascular endurance is really important to me, so I make sure that my endurance is always up to par. It doesn't mean you have to be able to run a marathon every day, but I definitely focus on making sure that my cardiovascular strength is always there so I can take part in activities like that. Okay, the second component here is your muscle strength, your ability to, or your muscle, just being strong, being able to push or pull, being able to sit and stand up. I saw people at the gym when I was working with this older population, and one thing that I always notice, or would notice when I was either meeting someone for the first time there at that gym, is if they could stand, when they went to stand up, how much their arms they needed to use in order to get up out of a chair. That's something that I've always noticed, and it always gives me an indication of how strong their legs are. Because if you need your hands to push yourself out of a chair, it means your legs are starting to become weaker, and we don't want that. You should be able to get up out of a chair without using your hands. And so that would always be like a little bit of a red flag. So being able to sit and stand, I would always make the joke, right? You want to be able to get yourself off the toilet, right? You want to be able to get yourself off the toilet, and that's when you're working with older people. That's a sign of independence, that you can get up and down off the toilet, that you can go up and down stairs without pain, or you're not limited going up and down the stairs. And that's all a strength component. Hand grip strength is also important. Can you open jars easily? It's independence, but it's also just the hand grip is an indicator of strength. You don't want that muscle wasting to happen when you get older. You want to be maintaining as much muscle as you can when you get older. Muscle wasting is a problem for multiple different reasons. You want to be maintaining your muscle strength as much as you can. And I'm a cardio queen. I love cardio. I love long walks. I like long runs. I like long hikes. But especially as I've turned this corner into 48 years old, I have made it a priority of mine to make sure that 3 days a week I am getting in a quality strength training regimen, so that I am at least maintaining my muscle strength, if not improving my muscle strength. And that's super important for maintaining your independence. Being able to roll yourself out of bed when you're older, up and out of the toilet, taking a bath if you need to, that you can get yourself up. All of that stuff is a sign of maintaining independence. When people older people like to move into a one-story building. Well, that's great, but you want to be challenging yourself to be going up and down stairs for as long as is safely possible. And so that's just really important, is doing the stairs is a great way to maintain your strength, to be pushing, utilizing your glute muscles, your butt muscles. And so that all of that is really important, and strength training is crucial for that. Other exercises, like people like to swim, people like to do yoga, people like to do Pilates. Those are great, but they don't maintain muscle mass the same way that strength training does. Like holding the weights is really, in itself, is a great way to maintain your the strength in your hands. And so I still recommend, even if people are swimmers, so swimmers does not help with bone density, and that's another really great thing about strength training, is strength training will help you maintain your bone density, and that's super important as you get old. We all know people who have have issues with their bones, and so maintaining that is super important. So strength training and bone density go hand in hand, and even though you may like to do things like swimming or yoga or Pilates, those do not help with your bone mass. And bone mass is very important, especially for men too, but for women, we just seem to lose it, like, in a critical way. And so doing a focused strength training regimen is really important. And the third component that I have noticed that is super important, or I know is super important from working with this population and having, certifications in this older population, is making sure that your balance is good. Because, like I said earlier, if your bone density isn't great, it's not great. That's not good for you. But the way you'll find out, for a lot of people find out their bone density isn't great, is they fall and they break their hip. And then they find out that they actually have really low bone density. And so if you are not falling over, you're ahead of the game, because then you're not going to break something. There's some statistic, and right now I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's something along the lines of the year after a woman breaks her hip, increases the chances of mortality by X amount. I should look it up, but I'm not going to right now. But if you breaking a hip due to fall is it's a big problem, and it is a issue. It's a lifespan issue, so it will impact your life, your mortality. And so anything you can do to help safely, that you can do to help your balance, is great. This doesn't have to be rocket science. This can be something as simple as when you are, by a wall, you can, put your hands on the wall, lift one foot up, hold for 3 seconds, put it back down, switch, hold for 3 seconds, put it back down. Anything that helps. Standing with your feet close together, you have less stability. And so sometimes that's, of course, safely, can be a really good thing to do. Or standing like this with one foot right in front of the other. That's another great way to, like, if you do like a close, like the walk they do when someone has a DUI, and you're just walking heel to toe. That's a really great balance exercise. But keeping your feet together, if you're doing some strength training at the gym, as opposed to keeping a really wide gait, you can even do one foot balance when you're doing strength training. If you're doing some upper body stuff, I call it a kickstand, where you have one foot flat on the floor, but there's just a toe is on the other foot, like, so you're just got a little kickstand, this foot's solid, this one's just just on your toe, just so that you start to work on your balance, right? Stand nice and tall and work on your balance. There's lots of stuff that you can do, that you can incorporate for your balance. But as long, for many women, if you have not great bone density, the key here is, if you don't fall, then you're ahead of the game. And so there's all sorts of ways you can work on your balance. So those 3 things I learned when I was especially when I was working with the older population. I was really young then. I was in my late 20s, and I was just a sponge and soaking in all this information. But I remember it imprinting. And I had some clients back then who were over the age of 70, and it always just shocked me how some of them were just so strong and quick and fit and capable, and how some could be so weak and frail and hunched and the age is just a number kind of thing. And it would amaze me that people in such a close age bracket, that some would be so strong and be like, yeah, I played softball, then I went and I hit 9 holes, and I don't take a cart, I walk the course, and or doing 5Ks. And there would be some people who were just so on it, and then there'd be some people who it just looked exhausting to be old and unable to function well independently. It just looked really hard. So maintaining your cardiovascular strength, your endurance, improving your muscle mass by doing concentrated strength training, not just yoga or Pilates or swimming, but actual like real strength training with real weights. And then also working on your balance. Some of those things you can do a combo. You could do some cardiovascular circuit training with strength, and you can throw your balance into your strength training exercises. So there's ways that you can combo and stack things so that you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, I have to do 3 different things. You can find ways to blend them together to be more efficient, because it's hard to fit it all in. So those are the 3 things I learned. I hope you find that helpful, because I know we all want to age really well. We want to age and be able to enjoy it, and be able to, maybe if we're lucky, have grandkids that we want to explore the world with, and that we don't feel like we're just like a lump in a chair and not able to go anywhere or do anything, or we're a hindrance. And I think we all have a responsibility to take as good care of ourselves as is possible. So that is it for me. If you enjoyed this content, I would love it if you would hit the like and subscribe. That would be fantastic. And then maybe you'll catch my next video. And I also am offering some 50-minute consultations, and I will leave the link for that below. Okay, so thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope that you stop by again. Bye.